the #1 insert of all time from the 1990s. Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Rice Bonds, Montana the Young, back here with you again. And today I wanted to talk to you about one of my favorite topics, 1990s inserts. And instead of sort of giving my opinion about the overall landscape and the market around 1990s inserts, which is an interesting topic to me, I think I want to do something that I've done on another format. Let's do a ranking of the top 1990s inserts of all time. I'm going to start with #1, and then I'm going to move on down the list. And, you know, for me, the ranking is just going to be based on my overall impression and all the other little things that that surround a baseball card and help determine how wanted it is, how much buzz there is when you post it and show it to your friends or whatever community you're a part of. I know this is going to be controversial once I get down the list a little bit, but for a lot of the sets that are at the top of the 1990s list, I feel like the industry, the people who collect these types of cards have more or less coalesced around certain sets as being the most important of the genre. The presence of 1990s inserts on YouTube is actually still pretty slight, just like it is in the overall industry. So to the extent that I can say anything to you today that's helpful or illuminating, educational, to help you better understand 1990s inserts in baseball, that would be absolutely satisfying to me. This is not a ranking of my favorite 1990s inserts. This isn't even a ranking of what I think the top 1990s inserts are in terms of my own personal opinion and my own personal biases and preferences. This is my attempt to talk about what the 90s community sees as the top inserts of the 1990s. So the #1 insert from the 1990s in baseball, in my opinion, for the overall landscape of the 1990s is the 1996 Select Certified Mirror Gold. That's not a controversial pick to anybody who knows anything about the genre. It is widely regarded as one of the finest, most difficult, and most desirable inserts you could get of a player. I would like to actually dive a little deeper into it. So the categories that I came up with, and you guys can tell me what you think about this, are 5 categories. The first category is prestige. Another subcategory, another subgrade that I want to look at is the rarity of an insert. Cost is a third category that I'd like to look at. I think that obviously all of these things affect each other, play into each other, feed each other, and are part of each other, but to the extent that we can break these apart into their own groups, I would like to look at the cost of some of these inserts. Fourth, this is the most subjective category, even though all of them have been subjective, and that is the beauty, the attractiveness, the overall aesthetic appeal of an insert. I'd like to evaluate that, give you my rating of that, and then finally the intangibles. So whatever it is that happens to give an insert an extra bump, maybe the design of it, maybe how well it's been accepted, or how long it's been an insert that's been well regarded by the 1990s community. All those smaller things that you can't put into any neat category, I would throw those into intangibles. So let's start with the first subgrade, the subgrade of prestige. My understanding is that ever since this product was released way back in 1996, it was intended as a super premium product, basically a precursor to all of those products like Exquisite and the Cup and basketball and hockey. The highest of the highest end products that you could buy for baseball cards, that was meant to occupy that segment of the market. And my understanding is that they successfully achieved that because in 1995, there was nothing like this type of rarity in a set. They only released something like 60,000 some odd boxes total. 1996 Select Certified Mirror Golds were highly prestigious. That has never changed throughout the entire time between then and now. and now the set is as prestigious as ever. And when you do get a card and show it off of a player that you collect, or you're a set collector and you add a major player to that collection, everybody who knows anything about the 90s is going to be impressed by it. The pedigree of this particular insert, the hardest insert of the whole set, was intended to be elite, and then it was regarded as elite by the market once it landed. A lot of the other top 10 or top 15 inserts that you could put in a ranking are not Johnny-come-latelys, but they've gotten more buzz in the last few years, largely because of the energy surrounding basketball. And the cards that are basketball cards for basketball players have really driven the energy and cost and buzz around sets in baseball that had always been admired but never been in the most rarefied era that it is now. If you go now to the rarity aspect, I think I touched on it a little bit already, but the card is exceedingly rare. The card is rare in a way that the industry had never seen before. I mean, there were parallels, or there were inserts numbered out of 10,000 that were considered exceedingly rare when they were first released in the early 90s. And then there were other inserts that didn't have stated print runs that were very, very hard to come by in 1995 specifically, but it wasn't until 1996 when Select Certified landed that you had a parallel that was out of 30. With all of the trouble that Pinnacle has had since it went bankrupt and was bought out several times, and plenty of product has leaked out since. A lot of product that shouldn't have been released, was not slated to be released and should have been destroyed, wasn't, and fell into hands of the secondary, tertiary market, and has now made it into the hands of a lot of collectors. It kind of creates uncertainty about whether there could be some nasty surprise, whether somebody may be sitting on a trove of a certain type of insert, and once it gets released, it's going to decimate the rarity of that insert and then decimate the value of that insert. So there is that risk. There's no numbering on the mirror golds. You just have to take it on faith. But I would say the risk now is fairly minimal because we've had so many years for there to be another Pinnacle find, and there have been several generations of finds where previously believed to be lost to history cards and sets somehow made it to market. In terms of beauty, I personally think that it is among the most beautiful baseball cards I have ever seen. I didn't think that when I first saw it as a new collector, when I had seen it from afar, from scans and even other people's photographs, just trying to capture the beauty of the card. The beauty of the card is really delicate, it is intricate, it is subtle, so you really have to have it in hand before you can fully appreciate it. And since there is a peel on those cards as they come out of a pack, in order to be able to appreciate the full range of beauty and spectrum of that card, you have to remove the peel, unfortunately. It's a very risky decision to make because a lot of people don't want to remove the peel. They think it's damaging the card, whether you damage the original structure of the card or not. They feel that removing the peel is taking away from the mint condition of the card because that is how the card left the factory, and so it shouldn't be altered in any way. But for anybody who wants to really soak in the true beauty of that card, you need to take off the peel and then catch it in the right light. So it is not one of those cards that just gleams and glistens in any light, but if you catch it in the right light, it is an absolutely stunning card. You can't even believe what you're looking at sometimes. It's because the foil board is made of such a unique, it looks so unique compared to other surfaces of shiny baseball cards from the 90s. It's foil board, so it is a piece of cardboard that does have the kind of glossy laminate that a lot of cards from the 90s have. And the foil board is a rainbow board, but obviously with a gold tint. And for those of you who've seen scans of this card on eBay or elsewhere, you can see that it does indeed have a very greenish gold tint. And when you catch it in the right light, it's rainbow foil, so it glistens. And because the surface isn't flat and mirror-like, like the hockey release of the 96 Mirror Gold, for example, or the 1997 baseball release of the certified Mirror Golds that were much less rare, instead of being glossy like that, it's actually, the surface itself has texture to it. It's heavily texturized. There's bumps and divots and little hills and valleys and rivulets. And so what that ends up doing is that when rainbow foil refracts light, it usually refracts just normal light into the rainbow spectrum for you. But because of the little imperfections that were designed to be there on the card, the rainbow isn't a perfect rainbow. It actually kind of splinters into all sorts of different other types of little types of light. So within a rainbow, you'll see within what would normally be like a solid blue band, within a blue band, you will see all the different colors of the rainbow pointing in all different directions because of the tiny rivulets and divots in the card itself. And so it is a very interesting thing for the eye because there's just so many small details to the card. So that's something you wouldn't be able to pick up from 2D scans, obviously. That's also not something you'd be able to pick up even if you're looking at it in the right light or you don't take off the peel. But I do think that we shouldn't ignore the first impression that we have of a card. I think that as a new collector, you got to remember what it was like when you first saw the card and recognize whatever complaints you have about the design, because that never changes. It may be that you get used to it or that other beauty or parts of the card overcome it, compensate for it. But I don't think you should ever forget what your first impression is, because I think that sometimes we get lost in how impressed everybody is by the card, how impressed you are by your own card, and forget that somebody who's coming into the genre for the first time may look at the card and not understand what you're looking at just because you've had so many more years of context surrounding that card. And I think that to completely dismiss your initial criticisms of the design of the card is a mistake that you should also take into account. So I've always remembered that I originally didn't like the card. It didn't help that the picture of Barry Bonds on his mirror gold cards from 1996 isn't the best picture ever. And so those are two uninspiring things about the card. Despite all that, I would consider it personally very high on the list of my own personal 1990s rankings. And then the intangibles that I'm talking about, that last part, I touched on it before already as well. But I think the fact that it's been a card that is hallowed in the hobby and was from day one and is still to this day, without ever having lost its cachet, without ever having lost its sexiness, without ever having lost its, without ever having lost the desirability of it, the absolute luxurious desirability of the card. It lives to this day with the same type of demand that it did from day one, and there's something to be said for longevity. There's something to be said for consistency. I'm here to tell you that the number one insert from the 1990s is none other than the 1996 Select Certified Mirror Gold with a stated print run of 30. So let me know what you guys think. If you think that the card is overrated, let me know in the comments down below. If you think that the card is somehow underrated, also let me know. I would love to hear from you. I would love to know what people who do watch this channel think about 1990s inserts, specific sets in particular. What do you think about the beauty of it? Do you think it's overblown? Do you think it's still underrated? Do you think I was really not able to capture the beauty of it in just using words to describe it? What do you think about the cost? You know, there was a swell of cost that happened a couple of years ago, and I think things have since calmed back down, but they're still exceedingly expensive cards. What do you think about the prestige? Do you think that prestige is just something that's invented and that you're a prisoner of the time when you talk about prestige, because it's very difficult to step back from the now and what you think right this moment to sort of consider the history of something and to understand for something even as, you know, as old or as young, depending on your perspective, as 1996, what you think about the prestige. Do you believe that it is overblown in our hobby? Do you think that it deserves the spot? Do you think that there are so many other insert sets that should instead occupy the first spot? These are all possibilities. These are all things that I've considered in my mind. I'm sure you have in yours for anybody who loves 1990s inserts. So I would invite you to comment and let me know what you think about 1996 Select Certified Mirror Gold being the number one insert of all time from the 1990s.